All right. So, so we're going to begin today with the art of Zen cooking, which is Shojin Ryori. I don't think I'm saying that remotely correctly, but it is a style of cooking that originated in Japan. Um, Before I even jump into all of that, because we have so much to cover today, if you're new to our teaching kitchen, welcome. This is the New York-Presbyterian Hudson Valley Hospital's teaching kitchen. I'm very honored to be with all of you this evening. And as I mentioned, our program today is the art of Zen cooking. For a couple of Zoom ground rules before we get started, if you have a question throughout the class, I will welcome you to unmute yourself and ask the question as we're cooking along, and then mute yourself again when you're done asking your question. And just when you ask your question, if you're okay saying your name, that way we can welcome you. If not, that's fine. You can just ask your question. That's fine too. And then if you have questions that you prefer to ask in the chat box, you can ask them there, but we will get to those questions after class today. So thank you so much for tuning in. And with that, we're going to get started. So just a brief kind of funny anecdote before we even dive into some of this. As I was getting ready for this class, there's two pieces of material that are essential to my programs. One is the telephone, which is what we're recording our program through. And the other is our microphone, the earbuds. So I got everything ready. I got all of my mise en place. I did everything, prepared it really well so that you guys would have a seamless, beautiful class. And I can't find my telephone. So I had a very un-Zen moment just, 10 minutes before this class. But if I look so calm and relaxed now, it's because I found my telephone. And also, I just took a few breaths to center myself and ground myself. So if you want to try this at home, you can just breathe in and exhale, bringing it down. So I did that 3 times. And then I actually found my phone after doing that because my brain wasn't so scrambled thinking about where on earth is it. So there's so much to learn from Zen techniques, from cooking to breathing to meditation. We're going to focus on the cooking today. So Shojin Ryori is a traditional dining style of Buddhist monks in Japan. It grew widespread in popularity with the spread of Zen Buddhism. So this is something that you may have heard of before. It's originated in the 13th century, and Shojin Ryori was introduced to Japan from China originally by the monk Dogen, the founder of Zen Buddhism. So this is where we're going way back in time to look at the history. The cuisine primarily is made without any meat, no fish, which is very atypical for Japanese food, or any other animal products, which makes it suitable for vegans, vegetarians, and even if you're a meat eater, you're still gonna like this food. So a typical Shojin Ryori meal is centered around the soybean, which you may be familiar with. Here we have it often in the form of tofu. So that's what we're gonna be using today. Soybean-based foods like tofu, as well as tempeh. It's also centered around seasonal vegetables. So eating in harmony with the seasons is really important to this tradition. There's often use of a lot of wild kind of mountain plants, which we don't necessarily know how to work with here, but a lot of wild plants are used in this style of cooking, which I believe to help keep you balanced and aligned, keep the mind, the body, and the spirit all aligned. So with that, I'm going to jump into a few recipes that we're going to be making today. We're going to be making 3. And again, I'm not going to pretend to be able to pronounce any of these things correctly. But the first is a soup, and it's primarily made with vegetables and tofu. So we're going to be making that. We made our own dashi, which is basically Japanese style vegetable stock, if you want to think of it as like a quick vegetable stock. And we're also going to be making sauteed shiitake mushrooms and steamed green beans with toasted sesame seeds. It's going to be really yummy. So before we even jump into all of this cooking, I am not an expert on Zen cuisine. I I'm only so lucky to have been able to travel to Japan last year, and not in 2020, 2019, so I guess that's 2 years ago now, and just to have dipped my toes into this vast ocean. And I was so taken by the culture and the food and the tradition. And so I just want to share that little slice of Japanese art of Zen cuisine that I learned there, and honor this great tradition and share it with all of you as much as I know. So that's our plan today. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So you all have a packet of information in your inbox. If you didn't get this, send me an email or let me know, and I'll make sure that you have it before the day is done. I also will send it with a feedback survey at the end of the class, so you'll have all the information in your inbox for sure. The first step to making our soup is making the dashi. So we use two things for this: kelp, also known as kombu, and dried shiitake mushrooms. So you'll notice for a lot of these recipes that we're making today, some of these things are not extremely readily available. It might be, you might have to go on a little treasure hunt to find them. So ShopRite, Stop and Shop, they have a lot of great basics when it comes to international cuisine, but they may not have things like kelp or kombu. So what I recommend is either going to H Mart, which is over in somewhere in Westchester, over in, I can't remember the name of where it is exactly, but H Mart has a lot of great stuff. That's sort of a good one-stop shop for a lot of the items that we're having today. And there's also the Apple Farm, which opened recently in Cortland, where a friend of mine very kindly picked up our daikon today, as well as our shiitake mushrooms. Look how beautiful they are too. Nice, big, juicy shiitake mushrooms. So those are some good resources of where to find these ingredients. The most important thing in Zen cuisine is not to worry. If you can't find an ingredient, there are simple substitutions you can make, or you can leave it out. It's always going to come together. So let's go ahead and get started with that. I have an empty pot here, and as I mentioned, I made my dashi ahead of time. So this was the kombu and the shiitake mushroom mixture that I simmered in just some cold water for about 30 minutes or so. So let me pour this off so you guys can have a look at this. So dashi is one of the foundational pieces of Japanese cuisine overall. It's a very flavorful liquid. It's often made like we're making it here, vegetarian, with dried shiitake mushrooms and kombu, but it's also often made with bonito flakes, which is made from dried tuna. However, because this is Zen cuisine, there's no tuna involved because there's no fish, right? So I'm just gonna press out our liquid here from our mushrooms and our kombu. This is kombu, which is seaweed, right? And very, very good for you. Kind of press that out, and this is going to be the foundation for most of our dishes today. So here's our dashi. You can see it's got that wonderful flavor from the shiitake mushrooms and that nice umami flavor from the kombu, super savory. So that's going to be a really important ingredient to make. So let's get started with our sauteing our vegetables. I actually have, this is called a tawashi. It's made with coconut fibers. You can buy them on Amazon. And if you want, you can use them to scrub your root vegetables. It works really, really well. You know, running it underwater, you can scrub it with a tawashi, or you can use a peeler and peel the external layer. Now, one of the tenets of Zen cuisine is trying to use as much of the food as possible. So this tawashi is really great because you end up using all of the skins instead of, well, we're going to compost them today, but you might throw them out at home. So, you know, instead of wasting anything, you can use the tawashi and scrub it really well. And that way you can save as much of the food as possible. All right, so here's our carrot and here's our daikon radish. Really wonderful food. If you've never had it before, it's similar to a radish, but it's a lot milder. So if you think, oh, I don't like radishes because they're too spicy, definitely try the daikon because it's really mild, it's delicious. Do we have any questions so far while I get these ingredients going here? I'm just gonna cut these in half so I have a flat surface and make a couple of half moons. So if anybody's got a question, go ahead and unmute yourself if you'd like to ask your question. If nobody has questions, that means I've done a good job explaining things so far, so that's just fine as well. So here's our carrot. And one thing that I also did ahead of time to prepare is I couldn't find any taro root, even though I'm told that they have some over at Seatown, which is the La Placita in Peekskill. They have taro root. So we're going to use a potato instead, right? No worries. So if you're not familiar with taro, it looks like a potato covered in hair. So that's the difference. It has a slightly different texture than the potato, which is one of the reasons I like to use it. But again, if you don't have it, that's just fine. You can use a potato instead. It's a fine substitution. So I just diced this potato up, popped it in some boiling water, and I just boiled it to have these nice little potato pieces. So you can see if you press them with your thumb, they do kind of smush apart. So the reason I do this potato separately and the taro separately, or rather the reason I learned to do it separately, was because if you put it in with the soup and boil it with everything else, it's going to get mushy and soft, and it's going to muddle the color of your broth and make it kind of murky. So that's why we did it separately, and we'll put it in more towards the end. All right, so let's get our pot heating up here. I have some sesame oil that I'm using today. Very traditional kind of oil used often in Japanese cuisine. Put that down. And let's just start by sauteing our carrot and our daikon. So I just cut these into little like half moon pieces. Nice and easy, right? No stress. All right, so we don't need quite that much daikon, so we'll use the rest for something else. It's really good raw. If you buy a whole daikon and you don't know what to do with all of it, you can just munch on it like a, like a celery stick or a carrot stick. It's really tasty. It's not too spicy. It's very good for you as well. So I just cut these into 4 pieces, and we're going to do the daikon in a quarter moon, just because the half moon was still a little bit big. This was a big daikon. All right, so notice I'm tucking my fingers. Oh, yes, I hear a question.
Yeah, you prepare the taro the same way you're going to prepare the potato, peeling it.
Exactly.
It. Okay.
Yes, yes. So if you're using the taro root, you would just peel it, chop it up into little cubes about this size. Okay. Put one in my hand so you can see the scale better, right? Mm-hmm. And then you would boil it in water until it's just tender, and then you just strain that off. One thing to note about taro, some people actually have like a slight, they develop a little skin irritation when you work with it. So if you've never worked with it before, you're prone to allergies, you may just want to wear gloves when you're working with taro, because it can produce a little bit of that and irritation. It's not really dangerous. It's not like a pepper where if you, a hot pepper where if you cut it and you touch your eyes, you get really a big problem, but it may cause some irritation. So I'll just show you how I cut up the potato while that's sauteing. I got the daikon in there, the carrot in there, and I just cut this is a little Yukon potato, cut it into slices. Each slice was about, let's say about half an inch thick, right? And then cut that into kind of these big chunky matchsticks, and then that went even smaller into our little dice. All right, nice and easy. I will say the Japanese knife skills are incredible. I mean, just watching any Japanese chef in their kitchen is an inspiration. So you do your best to cut everything nice and neat, and then you boil that potato, take it out of the boiling water once it's got that correct level of softness. It shouldn't be so soft that it's falling apart, right? Then you've gone too far. It should still be in chunks, okay? All right, so let's saute this together a little bit. And a quick note on sesame oil that we're using today. Sesame oil is made from pressing sesame seeds, of course. It's very high in antioxidants. It has anti-inflammatory compounds as well. 82% of sesame oil is unsaturated fat, so that's the good kind for us. It does have some omega-6 fatty acids, which are also good for us in moderation. And the omega-6 fatty acids are polyunsaturated. So again, this is one of the plant-based sources of oil that is better for us than oils that have saturated fat in them, like palm oil and coconut oil and things like that. So we're using the sesame oil today, which of course is useful for heart disease prevention and may even help to reduce that LDL cholesterol if you swap it out with your other, butter and things that have saturated fat. So I'm just giving this a little saute. Have you guys look in the pot here? Someone was telling me I need a mirror over my cooking station here, but I think we do pretty well. All right, so while that's going, other things that are going into this dish, those dried shiitake mushrooms that we used for the dashi, I also soaked them in some water, right? Just soak them for a little bit until they got nice and soft. We're gonna add this in too. So we're gonna add, we've already got the carrot and the daikon, and things that we couldn't find today were the burdock root. Burdock root is really wonderful, especially for skin health. The taro and the lotus root. So if you can find those things, you can have an amazing, very traditional Japanese style zen soup. If not, you can still make it using things that you can find in your local grocery store. And if you can't find the daikon, you can also swap it out with the regular radishes. That will work too. It's just going to have a little more spice to it. All right, so we'll add the shiitake in here now, and as well as some water. So this soaking liquid is actually very flavorful, so I'm going to throw that in there too. Let's not waste it in the tradition of Zen cooking. Let's add a little extra water in here. So it says to add 4 cups of water at this point. Maybe perhaps start with 3 cups. You can always add more later. All right. And we're just gonna bring that up to a boil. So I'll turn the heat up just a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let me pop this in the back so that we can work on our next recipe while this is cooking. And I'll take any questions before we jump over to our next recipe. Hopefully everybody's following along well so far. All right, I think I saw a question from Anne. Anne, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself and asking the question. We have our moderator who is working somewhere else today. So if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, Anne, and asking your question, that would be great. If not, that's just fine. We can address it after the class.
Okay, well, I've seen recipes that call for toasted sesame oil. So I was wondering, is there a big difference, and does it really matter in a recipe?
And that's an awesome question. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for asking that. Yes, there is a big difference between toasted sesame oil, which is this one. See how dark that is?
Yes.
And regular sesame oil, which is this one, right?
Oh.
So toasted sesame oil, the sesame seeds are toasted before they're made into an oil. So you get this beautiful dark color and a really intensely rich and nutty aroma. So that's the difference. Sesame oil on its own is not going to have a very strong taste. So yeah, major difference. Thank you for asking that.
Would plain sesame oil be good to use even instead of olive oil sometime, or?
Yeah, sure. I'm in favor of diversifying your oils. So in the same way that we say eat lots of different fruits and vegetables, a variety of grains, it's good to have a variety of oils as well. Olive oil is a really great heart healthy choice, especially because it's monounsaturated, but it's good to mix it up with sesame oil, walnut oil, avocado oil, grapeseed oil. Every oil has a slightly different sort of micronutrients. So the macronutrients are the same. It's all fat, right, in one way or another, but it's nice to have some variety in the micronutrients. All right. Thank you. Great question. So we're gonna let this come to boil, and then we're gonna simmer it for a little bit. Then we're gonna pop in our potatoes that we already prepared. The daikon didn't come, it usually comes with these big, beautiful leafy greens. So if you If you have access to those leafy greens, again, don't throw them out. They're really, really tasty. You can throw them in the boiling water before you boil the potatoes, for example. Throw them in there and then take them out when they start to wilt. Or if you want to, I had some arugula today. So we're gonna throw some arugula in. I also had some scallions, which are always good in soup. So we're gonna put these in at the end as well. So we'll put in some arugula, some scallions. This soup was traditionally invented because it kind of uses the leftovers of all the veggies that you have hanging around. So keep in spirit with that original traditional recipe. We're gonna add some tofu to this. Now, tofu, as many of you know, is one of the foods that sparks a debate. It's made from condensed soy milk that has been pressed into this solid white block. I'll take this out so you guys can see this. It's packaged in this, and then it's sitting in water. So if you don't use all of your tofu in one go, put it back in a container with water and just change the water out every day. And then you want to use it, within 2 to 3 days. All right. So tofu definitely sparks a debate. Most of the world's soybeans are actually grown in the US, and a large proportion of soybeans are genetically modified. So GMOs, genetically modified organisms, are definitely controversial. Research hasn't conclusively determined that they are harmful to human health. So it's up to you. If you're concerned about it, certainly you can buy organic tofu, and that means that it's by default not going to be genetically modified, because in order for something to be organic, it cannot be a GMO. So this is organic tofu. It's also pretty easily available. And then the other thing I wanted to mention about tofu is, of course, it contains so many nutrients. Just half a cup has 8 grams of protein, which is amazing, 20% of your calcium, as well as some minerals, selenium, magnesium, iron, zinc, all kinds of good things in tofu. It's very low calorie, and it also contains isoflavones, which I never say correctly, but it's a natural plant compound, basically. What these compounds do, and this is where it gets a little bit tricky on soy products, right, is they function as what are called phytoestrogens, meaning they can attach to and activate estrogen receptors in the body. So speak to your doctor, right? The relationship between soy, which contains these phytoestrogens, and breast cancer risk is especially complex. So research studies are conflicting. Some studies suggest that soy may act like this hormone estrogen and may be a concern for women with estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. So that is a breast cancer that's fueled by estrogen. So in a case like that, soy may be harmful. So just speak to your doctor if you have any concerns about that. It's always good to speak to your doctor anyway, right? So we're gonna use this soy, our beautiful tofu, and we're just going to crumble it. And this is gonna go into the soup as crumbled tofu. So this is a really nice, simple way to use tofu. Doesn't require that much work or cooking, just kind of crumbled right into the soup. So mushes down, nice and easy. And there's all kinds of ways you can cook tofu. Of course, you can grill it, you can marinate it, you can fry it, you can bake it, and you can use it the way we're using it today, which is very, very easy. All right, so while that's going, I'm getting my pan over here nice and hot. I'm using a cast iron skillet today. I find that that distributes heat really well and easily. And we're gonna start working on our shiitake mushroom recipe. So, as I mentioned, this is the shiitake mushroom, low in calorie, high in B vitamins, high in selenium, high in zinc, all kinds of good things in these shiitake mushrooms. So we're gonna start off by taking our sesame oil, and we're going to just put that in the pan. Before I do that, I just wanna show you how I prepared these. So I took off just a little bit of the bottom here, right? And then I cut them in half, leaving the stems on. I usually take the stems off, but because we don't want to waste, I took the stems off. So I'm going to cook these in the pan just like that, right? Stem side down, and then we'll kind of move them around a little bit. One note about cleaning mushrooms. They are tiny sponges. I always say this. So if you put them in a bowl of water or you put them in a bowl of anything, they're going to soak up that liquid. So you don't want to do that if you're going to be searing it, which is essentially what we're going to be doing here. We're going to be searing the mushrooms. So how do you clean them? You can use a damp cloth and just kind of quickly brush them. But I often find that they're not that dirty. So you can, kind of see for yourself, but a damp cloth is the best way to do it. And just kind of brush off the dirt. So I'm just gonna kind of line these up. I have the cap side down against the pan and they're starting to sizzle a little bit. And I just want enough space, right, so that they are not overcrowded in the pan. So each little mushroom should have its own little home on that pan and not touching. Okay. Any questions? All right.
Yeah. Hi, Emily.
Yeah,
Could
hi.
Hi, it's Judy. I'm wondering, can you freeze this soup with the tofu in it?
So that's a really good question, Judy. I can't say I've ever tried to freeze this soup with the tofu in it. I don't see why not. I don't think that there's anything in there. I mean, the tofu might change texture a little bit, but I think it might be okay. Yeah, it's a really good question. I haven't tried, so I'm not sure, but I don't think that there's anything in here that would be not good to freeze.
I just
Okay,
had a question about the tofu. Sometimes they tell you to like press the water out of it, and I know I didn't today, so I'm wondering, when you do.
Great question. Yes. When do you press the water out and when do you not? So if you were using your tofu and you were going to bake it or grill it or pan fry it, it's good to have it as dry as possible. You'll also want to buy a firm or extra firm variety if you are baking, grilling, or pan frying it or anything like that. So in a case like that, you would place it on, I like to use, what is it called? Like the cooling rack. Brain today. Put it on a cooling rack, put a plate on top of it, and then weight it down with a pot of water. And you're gonna want that cooling rack either set in the sink or somewhere where it can catch the liquid, right? And just let it press for a while. You can even see as I'm squeezing this just a little bit, there's liquid that comes out, right? So why do I not care about that today? This is going in a soup, which is already wet. So you don't have to have dry tofu unless you're trying to, unless you're really trying to make it, in a way that is, you want it to be like crisp and browned, if that makes any sense. Great question, thank you.
Sometimes I've used just a paper towel, but maybe that's just get the water out and press it. Is that?
Yeah, that works. That would work too. I think you would need quite a few paper towels, but yeah, I think the best way to get water out of tofu is to kind of sit it down in something where it can drain out and then put a nice big weight on it, pot of water or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your question. Thanks for watching. All right, I'm just flipping these mushrooms over and kind of pressing them down as I do that. They're starting to smell really good. They're a little bit golden and a little crispy on the edges. So I'm just flipping these over. And just a reminder, after you've asked your question, just mute yourself again unless you have another question to ask. I think you already did, but. All right, so flipping these over, pressing them down. We get a nice little sear in our cast iron pan with our sesame oil. And we're ready for the next step on the shiitake mushrooms recipe. Super simple. So you can use that same dashi that we made at the start of class, which is kelp and the shiitake mushrooms, simmered together for 30 minutes. So that's the same liquid. You can use that. And a little bit of soy sauce. So we're gonna put these two things in here. It's gonna make a big splash, big sizzle, big splash. All right, so just get ready for that. I have a shield, I'm ready. All right. There we go.
Hi, Emily, this is Janice, hi.
Hi.
You talked about with the tofu, changing the water, because you know what I really do, and I guess this is not good. I buy it and I kind of keep it in that little container that it comes in, and I just cover it. Is that a bad thing? I just thought about
It's
that.
not, yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's a good question. If you're going to use it within a day, it's fine, but it is good to just kind of keep it, to prolong the fridge life of it, I guess, to have it sitting in cold water. That's its natural habitat. So it likes to be in cold water.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thanks.
it'll keep longer.
Thanks.
Thank you. Nice to hear your voice. All right, so let's go back to our soup over here. It's been simmering. Our vegetables are tender. So we're just finishing off our mushrooms. You saw that big splash, right, when the dashi went in and the soy sauce. The mushrooms are going to absorb all that flavor. So like I mentioned, tiny sponges. So with the dashi, lots of flavor being absorbed here and a little bit of soy sauce. I am using a low sodium soy sauce today. Certainly in Japan, I don't know how they do it, but they seem to have no issues with sodium and they use so many salty things. So they must be doing something right because it seems to work out. So back to our soup over here. Let's add our final touches. Let's add those cooked potatoes. Pop that right in. Our low sodium soy sauce, about 3 tablespoons. Our crumbled tofu. Pop that in. And we're going to add our dashi, about 2 cups of that dashi. Okay. And let's bring that up, heat it up a little bit more. And then we're going to finish that soup off with our scallions. So I just have some scallions here. We're just going to do a little slice off the top. All right, and pop those in. You can always grow scallions back, put them in a little container. You guys may know this by now. Water around the roots, put them by a sunny windowsill. Your scallions will love you. They will grow back 2 or 3 times before they realize and the jig is up. But you can get a few more growths out of those roots. Let's throw in our arugula, which is substituting our daikon leaves. Always nice to have a leafy green in your soup, right? Pop that right in. And we're just going to simmer that for a little bit. Soup is done. Nice and easy. All right. Smells really good. Very light, very flavorful, very complete. Lots of veggies and lots of protein. All right, and our final recipe, the green beans. Let's do that next. Let's just do a quick check on our mushrooms here. They're very talkative in this little pan. There's a lot of hissing when the broth went in. All right, show you what these look like. So you can see they're glossy, they're flavorful, right? So these are done. I'm just gonna stick them back here before I plate them, and we'll finish up with our green beans. So the green beans, you can cook them in water or you can cook them in your dashi. How many of you knew that I was going to say that? So you can cook them in your dashi. Here's about 1 cup of the dashi. Pop that in there. We'll put our green beans in there too. And we're just going to steam them in the water in the dashi. All right. So we'll let that go. Yes, hi there.
Hi, my name is Barbara. When you made the dashi, how much water did you add to the package of the mushrooms and the kelp?
Yeah, so great question. So Barbara, I'm going to refer you to your packet here. If you look on the, if you look on the 3rd page, it says 2 cups shojin dashi broth. And then beneath that, there's a little asterisk that shows you the broth recipe is all of this is the broth recipe.
All right.
So it's, you're welcome. So it's 4 cups of water is the short answer to that. All right. So for the green beans, I just trimmed these into, 2-inch pieces. And then they all are going into the pan with our dashi. And that's it. I have some toasted sesame seeds. Now I bought these toasted online, but you can probably find untoasted sesame seeds and toast them yourself if you wanted to. The way that you would do that is just get your pan heated up, put the sesame seeds in it. You don't want them so hot, right, that they burn. You just want it on a medium-high temperature. Just keep moving them around. They'll start to smell fragrant. They'll get a little shiny because the oils in the sesame seeds will start with the heat. They start to kind of come out and cover the sesame seeds. So they get a little shiny, they get a little browned, and they get a little toasted. You're done, right? So we're gonna add our toasted sesame seeds, our toasted sesame oil, and I think that was your question. And then we're gonna add a little pinch of salt to our green beans. Very, very simple recipe, okay? So while everything is just finishing up here, I just want to turn your attention to some of the information in your packet, some pages about the Zen cooking. So spent a long time putting this together for you all. I'm very passionate about this topic. So some of the basic principles of Zen cooking: gratitude, right? Being extremely grateful for our food, for the people that grew it, for the elements that contributed to it. Gratitude, so important to the art of Zen cuisine. Another one is harm-free. So what does that mean? Basically, not killing any animals. Harm-free. Another is no waste. So making use of as much of the vegetable parts as possible. Making use of every little scrap that you can in the kitchen gets thrown into a pot to make soup, make a whole new meal out of just a few things. So no waste, very important. And then there's the rule of 5, which is very interesting. If you guys want to look at that, it's on the first page of your packet. The rule of 5. So every meal should include 5 colors and 5 flavors. So that's the rule of 5. The 5 colors are green, yellow, red, black, and white. And the 5 flavors are sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami. So those are the 5 colors and the 5 flavors that are supposed to be in every meal. It's a very different way of approaching your dishes. I'm just noticing that someone's microphone is unmuted. So if you wouldn't mind checking your microphone, if you recently asked a question, and just mute yourself. Thank you. Kindly mute your microphones. All right. Other things that are interesting about this, cooking with 3 minds. So the joyful mind, the caring mind, and the contented mind. So the 3 minds. So that I found very, very interesting as well. So they're referred to here in your packet as Kishin, Rushin, and Daishin, right? The 3 minds: joyful, caring, and contented. All right. I'm still noticing a little bit of feedback noise, so let me see if I can take care of that on my end here. Just give me a moment. Barbara and or Carmelina, sorry to call you out. If you wouldn't mind, Barbara, I'm muting your microphone. Thank you. Or Carmelina, I'm not sure who it is. There's always something with Zoom. All right, thanks everybody for helping out with that. So a couple of the ingredients are listed here as well in this page. One of the things I particularly love about this style of cuisine is the presentation. So everything is meticulously presented. Everything has its own little plate, its own little altar, right, as it's being served to you. So I included some beautiful pictures of traditional shojin ryori dishes, as well as some of the names of some other dishes that are of this tradition. So read through this packet on your own, have a look and see. There's a lot of fun info in there for you. All right, so our green beans are done, our soup is done, our mushrooms are done. So how do I know my beans are done? Look at them. They're bright, bright green, beautiful, right? Bright green. So we don't want them to overcook. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna grab my bowl of ice water. All right, so I have a bowl here. I set it in the freezer. Now it's mostly ice. All right, and I'm just gonna pour my beans over that ice water to stop the cooking. So you want them to be, to kind of seize them, right? So you start by boiling them, and then you put them in that ice water so that they stay nice and bright green. All right, so I'll show you in a second what this is looking like over here. Need another camera so you guys can see the sink.
Emily, do
right.
you lose any flavor when you do that? When you put it from the boiling water? into.
Yeah, so you're probably, perhaps you're concerned about losing nutrients. You're not going to lose out on that many nutrients because the green beans stay pretty, it's not significant. You will lose some, but it's not significant. Good question. All right, so here are the green beans. Just want them to be kind of patted dry. So I'm just going to lift them out of the colander, put them in our little bowl. And we're going to finish this off with our toasted sesame oil, our toasted sesame seeds. Give it that really beautiful, nutty flavor. Just going to kind of drain off any excess liquid, kind of dab these off a little bit with a clean dish towel. All right, let's add our salt. And you can put the sesame seeds whole, or you can use a mortar and pestle if you want to grind them up a little bit. We'll leave that up to you, chef's choice. And then our sesame oil, just a little bit. Let's toss that all together. So how easy is this, right? This is really perhaps the easiest dish of all. And whatever you boil your green beans in, that's the flavor that they're going to take on. So if you want to do water, that's fine. If you wanted to use your dashi, it's just another way to use it. All right, everybody. So we have about 3 minutes left. So if anybody has further questions, this was a really quick class for something that is so profound and just like spans centuries. 45 minutes is not enough. So I see a hand raised. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you can go ahead and do so, and we can listen to your question. Or maybe the hand raising was just out of excitement.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Carmelina?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi, Carmelina.
Yeah. Hi. How about different types of seaweed? There's one Nuraki that I've used.
Ooh, yeah.
Would you use different
Carmelina,
seaweed?
I love where your head is at. So, Carmelina, today we are primarily focused on kombu
Okay.
and using that as because that has sort of the deepest, richest flavor when it comes to seaweeds.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have kombu and that's what you've got another seaweed lying around, certainly you can use another seaweed instead.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. It's not going to have exactly the same flavor. The kombu is definitely the most traditional one. But you can use wakame, you can use something else. That would be fine as well. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for asking that question. And seaweeds are very, very good for us.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Wonderful food to enjoy. All right. Any other questions? I'm just going to show you guys a close-up here of these yummy dishes, our beautiful Zen. So here's our beautiful Zen soup. I can't tip that too far because otherwise I will pour it all over the counter. Okay. Our beautiful, bright, happy little green beans. Grateful for them. And our deep, rich, meaty, oily, wonderful shiitake mushrooms may help to lower cholesterol, has wonderful beta glucan fibers, which are good for your lowering cholesterol, and they just taste so good. So
Can you use other
Zen
mushrooms,
dishes.
Emily? Could you use other types of mushrooms?
Yeah, certainly. You can use other kinds of mushrooms. The reason I like the shiitake so much for this dish is because shiitakes are a bit drier, so they can get this nice kind of golden sear because they're drier. Other mushrooms tend to harbor more water, so when you apply heat to them, they kind of weep and cry. So it's harder to get that sear, that flavor, right? But certainly, if you've got something else and that's what you want to use, go for it. Give it a try.
I like cremini mushrooms, so.
Yeah, those are really flavorful as well. Yeah.
Okay.
And portobello.
Thank you. Yes, portobello. Delicious. Oyster mushrooms, that would be a good substitute actually for these. The oyster mushrooms also don't have a lot of liquid in them, so that would be a good one.
Oh, okay.
All right, everybody. Any last questions for us?
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope that you can cook with a joyful mind, a caring mind, a contented mind, and you know, apply some of these principles to your life if they're meaningful to you, if they resonate for you. So thanks everybody. It's
Thank
certainly
you.
a privilege to share this with you. And hope to see you again
this is
soon.
Judy, was your Japan trip specifically for cooking related or no?
No, so Judy, it was for my honeymoon. I got married in 2018, and we went on the honeymoon a year later in 2019.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's
Yeah,
great.
it was really wonderful.
Mhm.
So,
And is this
so,
style
yeah, thank you.
cooking typical of a particular area within Japan?
So it's just the style of traditional dining and cooking style of Buddhist monks in Japan. So wherever you are going to encounter Buddhist monks, this is the style of cooking that they're doing in their kitchen.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So that could be in any area of Japan because there are Buddhist monks everywhere.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everybody. All right, I'm going to close class. Thank you again.